What if I told you that what you're chasing, that elusive quality we call confidence, isn't a virtue to be acquired, but a primordial energy that already resides deep within you, veiled by centuries of programming and forgetting? How would you feel when you understood that true authority isn't imposed, but emanates like the light of a star that, by its mere existence, illuminates the cosmos? This is not a simple compendium of superficial techniques. It is a deep dive into the arcana of the human psyche, an invitation to internal alchemy that will transform the very perception of your personal universe. Prepare to uncover a knowledge that few dare to contemplate, a revelation that challenges the paradigm of submission and opens the door to existential sovereignty. Here on this threshold, we will understand how trust is, in its purest form, an energetic frequency, a vital pulse that has been silenced by ancestral conditioning. We will unravel the subtle engineering of programmed obedience, the inner slave that has convinced us that being less is the path to acceptance. But we will also reveal the art of breaking those invisible shackles, of reclaiming the unshakable presence that resides within each of us. If you feel the call of this truth, if you long to awaken the dormant power within you and manifest a presence that resonates with undeniable authenticity, then I invite you to join this journey. Leave a like on this digital oracle, share your reflections in the comments, and subscribe to this channel so that this torch of wisdom may illuminate every corner of your consciousness. Trust, my dear truth seekers, is much more than a passing mood or a mere mental attitude. It is, in its primordial essence, a frequency, a vibration intrinsic to the very fabric of being, a pure energy pulsing at the core of your existence, waiting to be acknowledged and released. Imagine it as an inner sun, eclipsed not by the absence of light, but by a dense veil of ancient conditioning, of subconscious programming that has whispered in your ear the convenience of smallness, the safety of inaction. This veil is no accident. It is the result of a slow and methodical process of spiritual anesthesia, designed to disconnect you from your inherent power, so that you forget the majesty of your true nature and settle for the shadow of what you could be. It is the greatest truth, and at the same time, the most unsuppressed of all. How do these conditionings operate? Let me guide you down a path less traveled. It's not just the words you were told in childhood, but a psychic architecture built on generations of fears and limiting beliefs. Let's think of the concept of the inner slave, not as a mere metaphor, but as an entity programmed within the psyche, a voice that justifies obedience and minimizes sovereignty. The ancient Gnostics, in apocryphal and forbidden texts, spoke of archons and aeons that veiled the true divine spark of humankind, keeping its consciousness trapped in illusions. It's not a matter of external entities, but of internalized mental structures that mimic those veils, diverting our life energy toward conformity. This programming manifests itself in the fear of standing out, of contradicting, of manifesting a will of our own that challenges the status quo, an echo of ancient hierarchies that feared individual awakening. The alchemy of trust lies precisely in the transmutation of that stagnant, dormant energy into an active and conscious force. It is a process of unveiling, of peeling away layer by layer the sediments of doubt, fear, and self-limitation that have adhered to your energetic core. When we begin to question the imposed narratives, to listen to the voice of our intuition above the chorus of mistrust, we begin a purification of the spirit. This is not a simple task, as it involves confronting the shadows that are comfortable for us, but it is the inevitable path to existential sovereignty. Reclaiming this unwavering presence means reconnecting with the cosmic pulse that gave rise to you, reminding your being that you are a conscious extension of the inexhaustible source of life, capable of co-creating your reality with a firmness that defies all mundane logic. Throughout history, a few have managed to unravel this secret, manifesting a confidence that transcended the norms of their time. Consider the Hermetic sages, whose teachings on the Emerald Tablet spoke of as above is as below, implying a correspondence between the microcosm of the human being and the universal macrocosm, suggesting that divine energy resides within. Their self-confidence was not arrogance, but a profound connection with the One, a certainty of their own divinity. Or figures like Joan of Arc, whose unwavering conviction in her visions led her to challenge empires, a manifestation of confidence as a transcendent force, an energy channeled directly from the immaterial into tangible action. These examples are not legends. They are proof that this pure energy is accessible, a dormant seed in every soul willing to water it. Thus, true confidence is not acquired, it is revealed. It is not a pose, but an emanation, a frequency that, when fully awakened, reconfigures not only your internal world, but also the reality that surrounds you. It is the beacon that guides, the magnet that attracts, the resonance that transforms the ether itself. You will feel the resonance of your being align with the universal laws of manifestation, opening doors that previously seemed insurmountable. This is the essence of internal alchemy, true sovereignty. But how is this pure energy anchored in the daily dance of existence, so that it is not a fleeting flash, but a constant, unwavering presence that shapes every interaction and every choice? This is the question whose answer awaits us in the next phase of our descent into the mysteries, the dichotomy between genuine respect and programmed submission constitutes one of the densest veils that obscure the true sovereignty of being. From the dawn of our existence, society, like a silent architect, builds us on foundations of obedience, deliberately confusing the intrinsic value of self-denial with the virtue of docility. We are praised for acquiescence, for bending our own will to that of others, believing that in such renunciation lies the key to acceptance and love. But is this the path that liberates us, or the path that chains us to an existence of false identities and alien purposes? Ancestral wisdom, whispered in the forgotten codices of the Essenes, already warned of the dangers of blind obedience, of sacrificing discernment for the sake of an imposed peace, one that atrophies the spirit rather than nourishing it. This programming is not accidental, but a subtle social engineering rooted in the most fundamental structures of our human experience. Within the family, the well-behaved child is glorified, the one whose voice does not disrupt the established order. In educational institutions, the student who memorizes without question, who accepts without rebuttal, is rewarded. Religious doctrines in their most distorted form have often transfigured devotion into servitude, demanding a faith that silences reason and subjugates the individual will to ecclesiastical authority. Even the texts of ancient Sumer, in describing the hierarchies between gods and men, reveal archetypal patterns of this imposition of submission to maintain order, albeit with a profound allegory that modernity has stripped of its initiatory nuance, leaving only the shell of blind obedience. The trap lies not in respect for wisdom, but in unquestioning obedience to power. The repercussions of this programming are profound and manifest in the atrophy of the inner eye, that center of discernment that discerns intrinsic truth. The individual programmed for submission learns to distrust their own intuition, to silence the voice of their soul, fearful of external disapproval. Self-denial becomes a habit, a second nature that distances them from their authentic creative power. How many times have we sacrificed our dreams, our deepest passions, on the altar of what we should be to fit in, to be accepted, to not disturb the status quo? This self-deception, this constant search for external validation, condemns us to a vicarious existence, where life is lived not for ourselves, but by the echoes of others' expectations. It is the denial of the divine spark that dwells within each of us, the stifling of the cosmic breath that propels us toward individuation, The path to liberation from this self-imposed yoke begins with the sacred act of discernment. True respect emanates from a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings, of the inherent dignity of every manifestation of life, including one's own. It is not an imposition, but a mutual recognition. He who respects himself recognizes and honors the sovereignty of others without falling into the trap of submission or domination. The ancient Druids, in their teachings on natural balance, did not speak of hierarchies of power, but rather of energy flows and complementary roles, where each part fulfilled its vital function without nullifying its essence. Reclaiming this inner sovereignty is not an act of rebellion against the outside world, but a silent revolution of the spirit, an act of self-love that resonates with the authentic truth of the universe. It is the reactivation of a forgotten code within our own being. Dismantling the programming of submission is, in essence, one of the most crucial facets of inner alchemy. It requires the transmutation of the lead of blind obedience into the gold of conscious autonomy. It entails a bold, introspective journey where every imposed belief is examined in the light of personal truth. Every external expectation is confronted with the resonance of the soul. This process is not a denial of order or harmony, but a redefinition of both, based on integrity and mutual respect, not coercion or fear. Only when the individual frees themselves from the invisible chains of submission can their life energy flow unobstructed, manifesting their highest purpose. True trust, the kind we spoke of earlier, can only fully flourish when the soil of being is free from the weeds of imposed obedience. The question that now confronts us is, how can we rebuild, brick by brick, the temple of self-confidence once the foundations of submission have been identified and dismantled? The inner slave is an ancestral echo, a code implanted in our psyche. It whispers to us that worth and acceptance reside outside. It's a Gnostic veil that hides our divine spark, driving the search for approval. It operates as a sentinel, erecting walls between our being and full power, the liberation of which would dismantle the illusion of inadequacy. This self-limiting mechanism is forged by the need to belong. From childhood, we mold ourselves to the expectations of others. Every adjustment, a truth silenced by rejection, strengthens its chains. The fear of not being accepted is a projection of the code, a lying voice proclaiming uniqueness as a burden, not a source of strength and sovereignty. Herein lies the resistance to tapping into our power, to manifesting our light. The slave is the guardian of an illusory threshold, a fictitious boundary. It floods us with doubt, whispers of arrogance. It fears our freedom, our wholeness. It knows that by awakening the inner sovereign, its hold of fear dissolves, revealing unsuspected potential. Hermetic texts allude to the cunning of the demiurge, a force that anchors the belief in limitation, perpetuating dependence. It is the essence of the inner slave, a program that thrives on cosmic ignorance. The Tower of Babel symbolizes the fragmentation of consciousness, allowing the slave to rule under the guise of imposed humility. The first step in the alchemy of sovereignty: recognize the inner slave, identify its deceptions. It is psychic dissection, a foray into the shadows of self-limitation. How to dismantle such an ancient code, rewrite destiny. The key lies in the hidden vibration of self-definition, a primal echo that pulsates within our being, awaiting liberation. This is the threshold that awaits us. Self-denial, emotional suicide, is external peace at the cost of internal chaos. Nullifying existence, stifling the vital spark to please, is betrayal. What value is superficial harmony if the soul screams? An ancestral code persuades invisibility is security, submission. The price is existential emptiness, a silenced truth that erodes the authentic self. It is a facade, a theater of complacency that distances us from our essence. Forbidden texts, the Codex Serpentinus, and Gnostic whispers allude to masks of the demiurge, illusions that distance us from divinity. Self-denial perpetuates a cosmic programming that anchors us in obedience, far from sovereignty. The authentic self is an offering to structures that feed on our perceived insignificance, keeping consciousness fragmented. An arcane strategy to strip the being of its inherent power. Emotional suicide is subtle. By silencing emotion, betraying desire for fear, vitality is consumed. It is a hemorrhage of the soul. External peace is a veil for an internal battle, where authenticity battles against conformity. We become echoes, ghosts of who we could be, devoid of our own resonance. An existence lived in the twilight of the unspoken, where vitality slowly dissipates day after day. Reverse this reverse alchemy of being. The first step is radical introspection, a descent into inner chaos. Unearthing layers of self-denial, recognizing scars from silenced truths and sacrificed desires. It is supreme courage to confront the shadow of the fragmented self, the only path to reintegration. Inner alchemy demands dissolving the false to coagulate the true, rebuilding the temple of the soul on foundations of irrefutable truth. This revelation is a cosmic vibration that resonates with the primordial truth. Understanding self-denial as emotional suicide is the threshold for reclaiming existential authority, dismantling false altars. It is a call to reinvention from the core. But this is only the first stage. Once the veil is torn, new challenges arise, living from that sovereignty in a world that worships the mask. That is the next mystery to be deciphered in our ritual of knowledge. To unravel the next layer of this enigma, we must delve into the very essence of the inner slave program. It is not a condemnation, but a set of veils of illusion woven over millennia, a matrix of imposed beliefs, inherited fears, and distorted longings instilled in us from our first breath. It is the voice of the collective, its expectations and limitations disguised as personal wisdom. Breaking this cycle involves an act of radical disidentification, a painful but liberating recognition that much of what we consider ourselves is, in reality, an echo of alien programming, an inheritance of psychic inertia that keeps us tied to a pre-written script. This program manifests itself through deep mnemonic imprints, patterns of thinking and reacting that are automatically activated, preventing us from discerning the voice of our own sovereignty. Since time immemorial, certain arcane texts, veiled from most, have alluded to the existence of invisible architects of social reality, entities or systems that subtly design the mental structures that perpetuate control and conformity. Not with physical chains, but with the persuasion of illusion, with the normalization of obedience and the fear of freedom. Understanding this is not a conspiracy, but a profound reading of the human psyche and its mechanisms of adaptation or submission. Erasing this program is not an act of forgetting, but of transmutation. It is internal alchemy at its finest. It requires the forging of a sankalpa, a sacred and unbreakable intention, which acts like a flaming sword to cut the energetic bonds of programming. It is the initiation of a rebellion of consciousness, a silent but devastating uprising against the very mental structures that imprison us. It is about unlearning fear, dismantling self-imposed guilt, and rewriting the internal narrative from a place of essential power, which lies beyond the borders of conditioning. In the vast space of pure consciousness, the great mystical traditions always spoke of this journey, disguising it in myths and parables about heroes who descend into the underworld or traverse spiritual deserts. These were not mere stories, but coded maps for the awakening of the inner slave. They invited us to question perceived reality, to doubt external authority, and to seek truth within. In the primordial source of being, those who achieved this feat were rarely understood by their time, because their lives became a mirror reflecting the enslavement of others, thus revealing the possibility of a freedom beyond convention. When the inner slave program is recognized and its dismantling begins, the being experiences an expansion that shakes its foundations. The light of consciousness begins to dissolve the shadows of inertia, revealing a pristine inner landscape full of unexplored potential. It is the first breath of a truly sovereign existence, not in the sense of domination over others, but of domination over oneself. However, this revelation is only the dawn. How do we sustain this newly acquired sovereignty in a world still governed by the rules of conditioning, where old programming assaults us in every interaction? That is the next threshold to cross, the true challenge of integration. Before a word articulates a sound, before a gesture draws a form in the air, there is already a vibration, a subtle frequency that precedes any external manifestation. This is the essence of energetic sovereignty, a primordial echo projected from the innermost core of being. Have you not observed how certain figures throughout history, or even in your everyday life, possess an undeniable quality that permeates space? A silent magnetism that is perceived even in their physical absence. The ancient Egyptians, in their hieroglyphs of the Ka or Ba, spoke of an inherent life force, a true individual signature, a field of resonance that interacts deeply with the environment. A field that is felt, sensed, before any verbal articulation. The word, then, is not merely a vehicle of information, but an audible extension of this inherent sovereignty. When the word emanates from a center of authentic presence and inner coherence, each syllable carries the unmistakable weight of inner truth, an energy that resonates far beyond its literal meaning or surface intention. Think of Zen masters, whose silence is often more eloquent and profound than any speech. Or of those orators who, with minimal gestures and an underlying stillness, manage to move entire crowds. This is not theatricality, but the outward manifestation of a profound internal alchemy, where spirit, mind, and form align in a perfect dance. The Hermetic texts allude to this reality with the principle of correspondence, affirming that as above, so below, and this extends unequivocally to our personal manifestation. Body language that projects profound calm, a tone of voice that embodies unwavering conviction, are unmistakable hallmarks of someone who has begun to master their own energetic universe. Where does this silent authority emanate from? This resonance that precedes all action and all words? It emanates from the deep integration of being, from the intrinsic coherence between thought, emotion, and will. When the multiple facets of the self converge at a point of essential unity, when the chains and programs of the inner slave dissolve and the true essence is revealed in its majesty, vital energy, be it Vedic prana, Taoist chi, or the etheric force, flows unimpeded and unobstructed, forming an auric field of plenitude and authenticity. The Vedic tradition tells us of the chakras, vital energy centers that, when aligned and purified, radiate a particular light, a tejas, which is the manifestation of vital and spiritual force. This sovereignty is not imposed through effort or domination. It simply is a natural emanation. It is the light of an ancient beacon that does not need to shout to be seen, whose mere existence guides and directs sailors in the deepest darkness. Without a single word spoken, let us reflect on the ancient myths of sacred kings, shamans, or magicians, whose power lay not in weapons, material wealth, or coercion, but in an intrinsic connection with the cosmic, an almost mystical ability to harmonize their individual microcosmos with the universal macrocosmos. This inner king needs no external validation, for his crown is awakened consciousness, and his unshakable throne is absolute mastery of his own vital energy. The alchemists, in their age-old quest, aspired to transmute lead into gold, not only in material crucibles, but in the soul itself, transforming base passions into lofty virtues, refining their inner raw material until they're being radiated the pristine light of philosophical gold. True energetic sovereignty is the direct consequence of this great alchemical work. an external reflection of an internal perfection achieved through a rigorous process of self-observation, purification, and a constant ritual of self-knowledge. Understanding and embodying this energetic sovereignty is the next evolutionary step on our path. The active and conscious integration of inner freedom into the very fabric of existence. It is the transcendental step from being mere passive receivers of reality to becoming conscious co-creators of it, influencing the field of possibilities with every intentional thought, every genuine emotion, and every deliberate silence. The presence felt before speaking is the prelude to a new level of interaction with the world, where old programming and conditioning completely fade before the inescapable vibration of manifested truth. But how is this emanation of power sustained in a world that constantly seeks to divert our attention, drain our vital energy, and distort our deepest perception? How does this inner flame remain unscathed amidst the storm, transforming the environment without succumbing to its onslaught? This is the enigma that awaits us at the next threshold. The ancient art of conscious manifestation, the alchemy of being in perennial action. Let's delve into the first threshold of this energetic sovereignty, the word. Can we truly be free if our expressions remain bound by invisible chains of doubt and apology? The language of submission is an ancient programming that undermines our internal authority, manifesting in phrases that soften, dilute, and deny the power of our truth. It is a veil of illusion that we project upon ourselves, an unconscious surrender of personal sovereignty inscribed in the mere act of communicating. Observe how this pattern diminishes the vibrational resonance of each statement, turning a decree into a plea. This is the first mystery to be unraveled, the alchemy of expression. Let's contrast this shadow with the light of assertiveness. Adopting direct communication with unwavering full stops and firm declarations is an act of pure magic. It is recognizing the power inherent in our verbal decrees. The Hermetic texts, in fragments of the Emerald Tablet, allude to the fact that as below is as above, implying that the spoken word is a reflection of the divine word, a creative spark. By eliminating apologies and softening, we reclaim the magician's staff, forging reality through the impeccability of our expression. This is the liberation of being through the art of conscious pronunciation. Consider the energetic cost of hesitation. Every maybe, every I just wanted to, or I don't know if I'm making myself clear, is a fissure through which our life force drains. It's like offering a flickering candle instead of an incandescent torch. This constant self-invalidation builds a veil of illusion over our authority, generating a vibrational resonance of insecurity that the universe returns multiplied. The ancient masters, knowledgeable in the forging of the self, understood that thought precedes words, but words crystallize thought. Diffuse communication reflects a diffuse will, an unaligned center. It's time to plug those leaks. The path to this internal transformation is a rite of passage. It requires conscious observation of every phrase, every intention. How many times do we apologize for taking up space, for expressing a need, or for simply being? This habit, embedded by millennia of social and hierarchical conditioning, dissolves with the art of presence. When we speak with certainty without mitigation, we don't just express an idea, we affirm our existence. It is a declaration of personal sovereignty that resonates deeply in the quantum field, reconfiguring our perception of ourselves and how we are perceived. It is the alchemy of the voice that transmutes insecurity into authority. This act of stripping language of its subservience is the first step in conscious manifestation. It teaches us that every word is a portal, a forge of self that shapes our universe. By mastering the verb, we begin to dissipate the fogs that hide our true potential. But the word, however powerful, is only the tip of the iceberg. Behind every statement lies a universe of intention, a vibrational resonance that silence shapes and consciousness polishes. What happens when our words align perfectly with a pure intention, devoid of all doubt? That is the next enigma, the immersion in the alchemy of thought itself, waiting to be revealed. Long before words wove their intricate web of meanings, the body spoke a primordial language, an ancestral tongue that archaic cultures understood with astonishing lucidity. It wasn't a simple mimicry, but a profound resonance of the inner being, an ethereal projection of our fundamental vibration. Posture, that ephemeral architecture we inhabit at every moment, is the first manuscript of our soul, a living cartography of our most intimate truth that reveals itself without deception. It is the inner temple that manifests itself, and its alignment or misalignment is the memory of the body that reveals itself without words, a silent echo of our energetic essence, a declaration of being that precedes all vocalization. Observe how fear shrinks the being, retracts the back, hollows the chest, as if consciousness was seeking to merge with the earth, to become invisible, to escape the scrutiny of the cosmos. See how insecurity blurs the contours of presence, causing the body to apologize for the space it occupies, for the oxygen it consumes. In contrast, conviction and self-affirmation open the shoulders, raise the gaze, root the feet with an undeniable gravitas, projecting a presence that cannot be ignored. These are not mere accidental gestures. They are the arcana of silence, energetic codes inscribed in the vast lineage of form, understood by shamans and priests who read in every inclination and every elevation the whispers of our inner truth, manifesting in the geometry of our flesh. But posture, my dear truth seekers, is not just a mirror that reflects. It is also a chisel, an extremely potent tool for internal alchemy. If insecurity inexorably manifests in the body, could a posture of sovereignty and power, consciously adopted, transmute the most deep-rooted insecurity into unshakable conviction? This is the great secret of postural alchemy, a forgotten art. It is not about faking a state, but about invoking it from the depths of one's being. By standing with purpose, by anchoring our presence with pure intention, we not only change external perception, we rearrange the inner fibers of our being, altering our vibrational resonance. It is an act of self-proclamation, a forging of the self, where the external form becomes a catalyst for internal transformation. A declaration of personal sovereignty written on the canvas of existence, in the annals of lost texts and oral traditions that few have dared to decipher, those dismissed as apocryphal for their revelatory knowledge. We find explicit references to this immanent power. The ancient yogis and qigong masters did not adopt their complex asanas and mudras on a whim or out of mere physical discipline. Each position was a key, a portal to altered states of consciousness, an invocation of specific energies from the cosmos. The spiritual warriors of old, the guardians of ancient knowledge, learned that the strength of the spirit was forged as much in the unwavering discipline of thought as in the imposing immobility of the body. They were the codes of the body's memory, a sacred language connecting the earthly with the cosmic. A guarded knowledge that affirmed that our physical form is a direct conduit to universal consciousness, a channel of energy that can be modulated. Thus, I urge you to observe your own body architecture, not with judgment or the critical gaze that society imposes on us, but with the curiosity of an alchemist exploring their crucible, an archaeologist unearthing a forgotten treasure. Reveal the stories your posture tells, the fears and strengths it reveals, the secrets it holds. Understand that, like the words you choose, the way you present yourself to the world is a powerful affirmation of your being, a silent message that shouts profound truths. It's a vital step in the mastery of presence, a resonance that extends beyond the visible. If form is a language and the word a portal, what happens when we align the geometry of our body with the intention of our voice and the purity of our thought in a symphony of manifestation? What other ancestral languages await us, encoded in the arcana of our own biology, waiting to be activated by a consciousness that dares to question? We have revealed together that trust is not an elusive chimera, but the palpable manifestation of a primordial energy, the resonance of an aligned being. It is the echo of your own divinity, the universal language woven between the intention of thought, the power of words, and the sacred geometry of your presence. Each of you is a potential alchemist, capable of transmuting this ethereal vibration into an unbreakable force, a conviction that not only defines you, but redefines your universe. We have learned that the mastery of this energy is not a secret kept by a select few, but an ancestral inheritance latent in the spirit of those who dare to look beyond the veil, to activate the dormant codes of their own inner authority. By understanding this, we not only transform our perception of ourselves, but we rewrite destiny, transforming from mere spectators into conscious architects of our reality, unabashedly controlling the essence of our own light. If every pulse of your being is a spark of creative energy, what new realities await to be forged by the conscious will of those who have deciphered the secret language of their own magnetic essence? This knowledge, my dear truth seekers, is a treasure forged in the crucible of time, a torch that lights the path to authenticity and genuine power. If the flame of understanding has been rekindled within you, if this echo of wisdom has resonated within you, I urge you to spread this light. Share this message with those kindred spirits who also yearn to awaken, who seek the keys to unlock the doors to their unlimited potential. Join this brotherhood of spiritual explorers by subscribing to this channel, where we will continue to unveil the major arcana of existence, charting the path to enlightenment and mastery of being. Your presence is vital to this collective awakening, and to continue our pilgrimage toward the core of truth, I invite you to our next revelation, the invisible threads of destiny, how intention shapes the future, and the key to weaving your own path. There, we will explore the subtle forces at work beyond the visible, revealing how the purity of your will is the true chisel of tomorrow. Until then, may your inner light guide you every step of the way.